Alrighty, so with us today we have Ryan Harris, graduate of the University of Notre Dame with 2 degrees, one in economics and policy, the other in political science, 10-year NFL vet and Super Bowl 50 champion with the Denver Broncos, author of Mindset of Mastery, NFL Champions Guide to Reaching Your Greatness, co-host of the Harris, Hastings, and Dover show on Altitude Sports Radio, radio analyst for Notre Dame football, international speaker, and most importantly, a husband and dad. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you're a very busy man, and it's a crazy time in American history. So,
hey, great to be here, John and Jalen. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Of course.
So let's get right into it. I know you were very heavily recruited all throughout the process. What kind of flipped that switch for you that made you want to come to Notre Dame and spend 4 years in South Bend?
Well, one, my parents said I couldn't go to Miami. That was the beginning of it. But really the beginning when I took an unofficial visit to Notre Dame. Still have not met this person to this day, but they beat Michigan at Notre Dame. And while I'm on the field, 17 years old, so this older gentleman, middle-aged guy, taps me on the shoulder. He says, "I know who you are. I know why you're here. And when you come to Notre Dame, you're more than a number. You're part of the family." And I was like, whoa. And he just walked away. And I also noticed that when I talked about my top 5, it was Notre Dame, Miami, Michigan, Stanford, USC, that people were always like, "Oh, Notre Dame." And I was like, well, I mean, did you hear Stanford and, USC and Michigan? So there were things like that just gave me a push. And then I wanted the challenge to succeed in the classroom. I want to compete at everything I do. And if I'm going to go to school, I want to go to school, and I want to go to the best school. If I'm going to play football, I want to play on the best team against the best competition. I'm not afraid of that moment. And that's what's unique about Notre Dame graduates and Notre Dame athletes, which are typically 98% graduates, is that you can go to the Alabamas, Michigans, USCs, but you choose to come to Notre Dame to create a better future for your family, not just yourself.
Awesome. So I know you just mentioned wanting to be the best and play with the best and compete against the best. Obviously, huge week for Notre Dame with the best, number 1 Clemson in town. We were both in Arlington for the last time these two teams matched up. What do you see that might be a little different from the last time these two teams faced off in the 2018 Cotton Bowl?
Well, 2 big differences everyone's going to see is, one, Notre Dame's defense is incredible. I mean,
Absolutely.
Clark Lee has held 31 of 32 opponents to under 30 points. I believe they've allowed 2 touchdowns in the last 3 games. And they have the best linebacker in the country in Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, and the best safety in the country in Kyle Hamilton, who's just a sophomore. That's not even speaking to Dalen Hayes, a graduate who's on the team, who they call Coach Hayes because he's been around for so long. But he's really he had 2 sacks last week in Atlanta against Georgia. Against Georgia Tech. And one of the things that, talking with Clark Lee, he wants his guys to understand why they're calling things defensively, and he simplified their scheme to allow guys to play faster, and has really found a response specifically this year. And then number 2, Notre Dame has the best offensive line and best run game in the entire college football landscape. Sure, there may be other teams who have more yards. They're averaging 260 yards per game rushing. They went against the number 1 rush defense in Pittsburgh and still had 120 yards rushing. They have 3 first-round picks on that offensive line. And Kyron Williams is a fantastic running back. Chris Tyree has speed Notre Dame hasn't seen at that running back position for 2-3 decades. So their offense is completely run dominant, and that's something when I watch the film, Clemson leaves a lot of toughness and stoutness in that middle of the defense that they're used to having, that fans are used to seeing. That's just not there this year. They have a freshman starting at the 3 technique. That's tough. I don't care how good that freshman is, especially when you consider he's going against future NFL players as it is O-line U.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I know that run game in the Cotton Bowl was a little sluggish for Notre Dame. Couldn't really get it going, and made Brandon Wimbush have to go through the air constantly in that game. So.
Yeah, it's going to be definitely going to be a different game this year. And Ian Book still has to play well. But listen, he's getting the ball off in about 2.5 seconds on his passes. And he's really developed the chemistry between Ben Skoranek, transfer from Northwestern, and also Javon McKinley. So and Michael Mayer is, I mean, from tight end U and O-line U, I mean, Michael Mayer is the first freshman to catch a touchdown pass since Kyle Rudolph in 2008. And Michael Mayer reminds me of a Rob Gronkowski. He's a freshman. He just gets better every week out of Kentucky, and he's going to put on a show Saturday night.
Absolutely. No, this group of tight ends is impressive, and they keep getting better every week. Last time a number one team came to South Bend, you were on the field. It was back in 2005 in USC. I've heard a lot of people drawing comparisons to that game into this weekend. Do you, as someone who was in that game, see any sort of resemblance to that? Or, like, what would you say differentiates the two? Obviously, USC is a huge rivalry game that everybody circles on the calendar each year.
Yeah, I believe that people understand Notre Dame's defense is far better, and it can compete at a higher level. And at the same time, that's why you go to Notre Dame. You want to play the number one team. It doesn't matter where it is. And, there's no school that's more prepared, has prepared its athletes more for championship moments than Notre Dame. You're expected to be great at Notre Dame. You want to fulfill your potential, you better match the tradition and history of success. And one of the things I know, too, from playing in these games, is going to be important for Notre Dame, and I'm going for Notre Dame here, so it stands for Clemson, too. But you have to play fast in games like this. It's so easy to think about the game that other people are watching. You've got to play the game that you're in. And that may sound, like common sense, but, common sense is rare these days, and it maybe has been rare always. But playing fast plays you through your nerves, through your excitement, and allows you to depend on your preparation and instinct, and that's how you win big games.
Absolutely. So going off of that, I heard Coach Kelly yesterday in his press conference, or 2 days ago, said that even if they go all in on this game for Clemson and expound all their resources, Boston College is still waiting right around the corner. Nobody in the country should know Clark Lee's defense better than the man under center for Boston College and Phil Dracovic, who just spent 2 years as a backup quarterback here. Do you see that Boston College game potentially being problematic if Notre Dame survives Clemson here and escapes with a win?
I do not. And I cannot put into words how effective dominant run game is for an offense. Just to give you an example, if I put you, John, on your tail 3 out of the first 10 plays of the game, when I'm coming after you for that 11th play, you're going to start making business decisions. I mean, you can only get ran over so many times before you change as a man. Right. And everybody has that kind of a plan. And one of the things that I love about how Tommy Rees is calling games, they might get 1 or 2 yards to start in rushing in the first couple series. Well, then they're going to get a 30-yard gain and a 15-yard gain. And pretty soon, between wide runs, tight runs, trap runs, all these things, pretty soon you got 4 or 5 guys who've gotten rolled over 4 or 5 times. And, oh, by the way, they got to go out for the second quarter. So that's the kind of effect that Notre Dame has had on all of its opponents this season, which is why they're undefeated and number 4 team in the country.
I absolutely agree with what you said there. Jalen, do you have anything?
Yeah. Again, thank you, Ryan, so much for coming on with us, man. It means the world. So if you don't know about me, I'm a lifelong Oklahoma fan. Parents are from there. Mom went there. My sister is currently a freshman running track there. Nice. So, that hence the name, the Irish Sooner, our podcast that we do. But I guess one of my questions for you is, obviously Notre Dame and Oklahoma are both right now kind of seen as dormant blue blood programs who, when they get to the big stage, flop. So from a outsider's perspective, what would you tell people that are saying, oh, well, how is this Notre Dame team any different than the ones from the past?
And that's a great question. I'll take you to one conversation Coach Kelly and I had. I said, Coach, what'd you learn from the national championship game? He said, I learned that we were not as deep as Alabama, that we just didn't have the depth at every position that Alabama had. And he went out and he recruited, and he redoubled his efforts recruiting. And they've had great recruiting classes that has now shown on the field. So Coach Kelly understood not just that it's the plays in the game, but it's also the players and the depth that you have, whether that's special teams, whether that's putting in a defensive line. Notre Dame's had 19 defensive linemen play over 10 snaps this season. That means they're rotating guys in and out. Multiple freshmen are getting opportunities. They are fresh, they are talented, and they have depth. A very different landscape than they were even just 2 years ago.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I know that, in my conversations with my Oklahoma colleagues, we felt the same way. There's a difference between, the LSUs of last year and Clemson's and Georgia's, that the difference was the talent. And it takes time to build that depth. And so I would agree, and I even told Obi this. I've been very impressed with Notre Dame this year. I think that you guys definitely have a great chance to go. My second question, probably last question. No, want to be sensitive to your time, but I also was born and raised in Indianapolis, so I'm a huge Indianapolis Colts fan, and I can't help but notice, obviously, that you won Super Bowl 50 with my boy Peyton.
Yeah.
So if you have do you have like a crazy or just even regular Peyton Manning story you could tell us and the listeners?
Yeah, I mean, the greats worked so hard. I remember I was in the weight room, and quarterbacks, if people don't know, like, you lift with your group, right? So linemen lift together, quarterbacks, things. So we're doing a workout, and there's a bench press in that workout where one person's benching, the other person's spotting, the other one can rest. And after jumping off the bench press, Peyton Manning jumped up and was practicing fumbled snaps in the weight room. Fumble, like a rolling snap from the shotgun in the weight room, in between spotting the next person and also lifting himself. And that kind of work ethic, showing up. He would show up every morning for the 7 a.m. lift in his workout clothes already. He's ready to go. And he kind of wait till some people came in and he'd jump out of his car and go lift. So what people I believe miss is that to be excellent, to reach your greatness, you do have to put in work, and it's detailed work. It's practicing the little things that make a huge difference when you do encounter them in a game or in life. And Peyton Manning is one of the hardest working players I ever played with.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I would say, Jay, if you haven't read Ryan's book, it is absolutely fantastic. It's one of the best books I've ever read, and it challenged me a lot as I read through it. So, Ryan, thank you for putting that together. And, Jay, if you don't have anything else, I'm going to go ahead and just say thank you to Ryan for joining us again. Thank you for being on the show. We'd love to have you back some other point or wherever you'd like to join us.
Yeah, always. And keep up the great work, guys. Keep reaching out. Keep reaching for your dreams. Go Irish.
All right. Go Irish. Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.